Hello everyone and welcome to Abstract America's Oracle EBS Financials Functional Training. My name is Bob and I'm the lead senior consultant for Abstract America. And with me today I have Victor, and he's also a senior consultant for Abstract America. And Victor, please walk us through the General Ledger Lesson 3.
Hello everybody, and thanks Bob for the introduction. My name is Victor, as he has said. Welcome to Lesson 3 of the Oracle Financials Functional Training. So today these are the concepts that we are going to look at. We are going to look at the concept of a responsibility, and this is also closely linked to the user. We're also going to look at profile options, system, and some personal profile options also. We are going to enter some journals in our ledger. And then finally, we are going to look at the concept of balances. We are going to do some inquiries against these account balances, and we're also going to do some reports. So if we remember from our previous lessons, we have already done the initial setup for our general ledger. We created a primary ledger. And so we have not yet been able to use this ledger. We have not entered any information in the ledger. So this is the point we move forward from then, and we are going to first look at responsibility, which is what allows us to access our ledger. Okay, so let's start with the concept of responsibility. So what is a responsibility? In simple terms, a responsibility is the role that a user assumes once you log into the Oracle instance. So the way I would like to explain a responsibility, you can think of it, let me use this example, you can think of it in terms of a Facebook account. You can log into a Facebook account using your username and your password. Once you log into your Facebook account, you can post Facebook statuses or upload a photo. You can post it as yourself. People will see that, oh, if it's for me, Victor Gikonyo has posted a new photo or has posted a status. But then there's also another situation where maybe you are the administrator of a page. So maybe you run a page that, I don't know, you post photos of travel or something like that. So you can also select the option of posting as that page because you are the administrator of that page. But you logged in using the same password, the same username and password, your own username and password. So the concept of responsibility also works somehow like that. You can log in as a single user, but then you have access to multiple responsibilities. And these responsibilities, they allow you to carry out different tasks in the Oracle instance. Now, examples of responsibilities that can be linked to general ledger. You can have one responsibility called general ledger super user. Maybe this a super user, most of the times the responsibility is given to people like managers who are able to access all menu options under the responsibility, under the GL responsibility. You can have a general ledger manager for one company using some security rules or data access concepts that we are going to look at later. You can have a responsibility that allows that person who is assigned that responsibility to only view certain menu options. And you can also have a receivables responsibility, which is linked to the receivables module. Let's look at this diagram, which will help us to understand the concept of responsibility much better. So this is the hierarchy of the Oracle Financials e-business suite, right? So at the very top, what we call the site level, we have the installation of, I would say, of the Oracle Financials. So a company has purchased a license for Oracle Financials and they have installed it. So this is what we call the site level. And then Oracle Financials contains different modules. We have GL, is what we are looking at right now. And then we have account payables, we have account receivables. The others might include fixed assets and cash management. So I've only listed these three here because it's an example. So how do you access the features of each of these applications or modules? The next level is responsibility. It is through the responsibility that we are able to access the features of each of these modules. And these responsibilities have their own characteristics, as we are going to see, which also define how we are able to access the various features of the different applications to which these responsibilities are linked. Okay? Now, these are the different features that define a responsibility, and we are going to look at this in the system. So one, we have a request group. What is request group as far as responsibility is concerned? Request groups define the requests which are available for that user to which the responsibility is assigned. It is responsible for the reports which this user is able to run. And we are going to look at the different types of reports also later, so don't worry about that. But understand for now that request group defines the kind of reports that a user to which that responsibility is assigned is able to run. What is data group? For now, we are not going to go in too deep in the topic of data group because it's not going to affect us in the functionalities and the setups that we are going to study for our classes. So right now, don't worry too much about data group. But I am going also to show you how we specify the data group once we go into the system. Let's look at the other feature of responsibility that affects how a responsibility can work. The other thing is the menu group. And what does the menu group do? The menu group defines the menu options which are available to the user who is using that responsibility. Okay? So we are also going to look at the menu once we go to the system, and you're going to see exactly what I am talking about. The other thing that can be used, that can be assigned to a responsibility are profile options. And these profile options is what we are going to focus mostly on when we are talking about assigning a ledger, our ledger, the one that we created, the Mascani Group ledger, to a responsibility. Because it is through a profile option where we assign a ledger to a responsibility, and then the responsibility is assigned to the user, and the user can be able to see that ledger. Okay. So now, up to this point, I think this would be a good place to go into the system just to get an idea of what we are talking about. So right now, the user credentials that I am using are Upstack Super User. Okay, so this is my username and this is my user. So I am going to log in. And once I log in, these are the responsibilities that are available to me. Okay. So here you have fixed assets. This responsibility is linked to the fixed assets module. This is a fixed asset manager. We have a general ledger super user. This is a responsibility that's linked to the general ledger module. We have an inventory. We have payables. System administrator is also sometimes looked at as a responsibility, or it can be looked at as a separate module also. But system administrator also adds this. Once you are assigned a system administrator responsibility, you also get this here, the application diagnostics. Okay. Now, in order to create a responsibility, we have to use the system administrator responsibility. All right. What I am going to do now is I am going to take you to the window where we create a a responsibility so that we can also see the various features of responsibilities that we have discussed, the menu group, the data group, and the request group. All right. So the navigation, first we log in as a system administrator, and then you go to security, and then responsibility, and then define. Okay. So it will launch the okay. Let's choose one responsibility to use as an example before we create our own. So we can query for a responsibility here. I don't know, general ledger. I know there's so many. So for general ledger super, let's look at this general ledger super user. Okay. All right. So this is the responsibility window. This is the window where we create a responsibility if we want to create a new one. And on this window, you can see the various features that we need to specify for responsibility that are going to define how this responsibility is going to work. So at the top here, the first record, you can see the name of the responsibility, General Ledger Super User. This responsibility belongs to which application or which module? General Ledger, okay? The responsibility key, this is what, when the system is looking for this responsibility in the tables, in the back end, this is what it uses to look for this responsibility, rather than what we see here as the actual name for the user. This is what, when the system is looking for this responsibility, uses this responsibility key. So that's a bit technical, so let's not worry about that for now. But that's the description of the responsibility key. And then here, the description, you can enter your own description of what this responsibility is. So for this one, super user responsibility for Oracle General Ledger. And as we said, most of the time, super user is given to high level, maybe accountants in the company who are able to access all the options. Okay. So once you look down here, you're going to see the features which we have just discussed. Okay. So for example, here you will see the data group. And like we said, we're not going to focus too much on the data group, but this is the one that we are going to use even when we are creating our own responsibility, all right? So it's going to be standard, and it belongs to the general ledger module or application. And then down here, we see the menu group. And also just to mention, as you see, the data group is mandatory because the field is yellow. Menu group is also mandatory because the field is yellow, but request group is not mandatory. But anyway, let's first look at the options. So here is the menu. Here is the menu group, and when you're creating a responsibility, it's also going to be a super user responsibility. So this is the menu group that we are going. This is the menu group that we are going to assign it to. And so, what does this menu group determine? We can minimize this. Let's go back to the Firefox window. That menu group is going to determine if because our responsibility is going to be a GL user, the menus for the GL super user that we see here, like this one, ability to enter journals and all that. That menu group determines what menus, what options we are going to see here. So like for system administrator, this is a menu option. This is a menu option. This is another menu option. So depending on the option that you select. Okay, I think I I closed my anyway. Let's go back to security. You can also do a control F and search here if you get lost. Okay, security responsibility defined. All right. We were looking at the general ledger. All right. So this menu option is going to determine those menu options. This menu group is going to determine those menu options that I have shown you. And you can see there's a list of hundreds of them here, thousands of them, depending on the menu options that you are that you want to select. Okay. Lastly, this is the request group. It's going to determine the kind of request that the user who is assigned this responsibility is able to run. So what are the requests that we are talking about? Let's close this and go back to general ledger, super user responsibility. All right, let's go to reports, request, standard. Let's do single request. So there is a bunch of reports, and we're going to look at some of them. These are called standard reports, and they come seeded in the system. They come preloaded, to use that word, but the actual correct word is seeded. So using that request group option, you can determine which of these requests that a user who is assigned a certain responsibility is able to run. So all these requests, for example, are for the general ledger application. So this general ledger super user is able to run all these requests because of the request group that they have been placed in. Okay, so let's close that. Let's cancel. Let's go back to our system admin responsibility. Let's go to security, responsibility. Fine. We were looking at general ledger super user. Okay. So this request group will determine those reports that that the user is able to see, that as I have shown you on that reports page. And as you can see, there are different report groups that you can place a responsibility in, and these are also arranged also by the module or the application. Some of them are for human resource, some of them are for receivables, inventory. So depending on the responsibility also you're creating, you will choose the appropriate request group. And as I have also mentioned, this group is not a mandatory field. This is not a mandatory field because it's not yellow like these other fields. So you have to select the data group and you have to select the menu group. So for instance, if you create a responsibility and you don't select this, you don't put in a request group here, Oracle will still let you create that responsibility, but that user will not be able to run any reports for that responsibility, okay? So in all these discussions that we have had up to now, remember what we had said at the beginning is we are creating a responsibility in order for us to be able to access the ledger that we created, the Mascani group ledger that we created. But we have still not yet mentioned anything to do with how to access this ledger. Why? Because to assign a ledger to a responsibility, we don't do it on the responsibilities window. We do it using an option called profile options. Okay, a function called for profile options. We select a certain profile option. That profile option is called GL data access set, and it is the one that we use to assign a ledger to a responsibility with. Okay, so let me first close this. Let's go back to our slides. So remember, we mentioned that responsibility, we have request group. We have seen what that does. We have looked at data group also, and we have looked at the menu group and what all these options do. But we have not yet discussed how to assign a ledger, because a ledger is done through the profile options. So what are profile options? Profile options are environmental, we can call them environmental variables that we can assign to a responsibility to determine various things. This can include, one, the ledger that responsibility is going to be able to access. Printing options such as which printer that user assigned that responsibility is going to be able to send reports to for printing. The other thing is like the Excel version or the desktop viewer. So once that user wants to view Excel documents through Oracle, what version are they going to be able to use? What Excel version? 2007, maybe 2007, maybe 2003, 2002, depending on the Excel version that they have. So these are things that you can select in Oracle, and that's why they are called environmental variables, right? So this GL data access set profile option is the one that we use to assign a ledger to a specific responsibility, to assign a specific ledger to a specific responsibility. So you use this GL data access profile option. All right. So let's go back to the system. Let's go back to the so what we do to assign these profile options, we also use the system administrator responsibility. So what is the navigation? The navigation is system administrator, select the system administrator responsibility, then go to profile, then system. Okay. So this is the window where we assign responsibilities. Once you look at this window, you're going to see various fields, and they match with the diagram that I showed you on our slides. Let's go back to our slides for a bit. So those are the different levels that we have seen on those on that window, on that system window for assigning profile options. Okay. We have the site level, as I told you, I've already explained. We have the application level, which is also the modules, GL, AP, AR, or whatever other module. And then we have the responsibility. We have the responsibility level. The responsibilities are assigned to the different modules. And then we have the user level. So these profile options, they can be assigned at all these various levels. So what does that mean? Let's use an example. So using the example of a maybe Excel viewer. we can select at the site level that the Excel viewer is going to be version 2003. Okay, so what does this mean? Once this user logs in, like the way I logged in using the Appstack super user, Oracle, and I want to view something using Excel. What is Oracle going to do? Oracle starts looking for this profile option from the bottom level, all right, from the user level. So Oracle is going to come and check at the user level and see that there is no value for the Excel version profile option that has been set. There is no value that has been defined at the user level, okay? So it's going to leave that level and it's going to go to the responsibility level. So actually, let's use this user first, who is assigned to only one responsibility, okay? So let's use user 3. So once user 3 logs in, Oracle is going to check at the user level and see that for the profile option Excel version, it's actually called this default desktop view, I believe, the actual profile, but let's call it the Excel version. So the profile option Excel version, nothing has been defined for user 3. Okay, so it's going to leave the user level and it's going to go to the responsibility level. This user has a responsibility 4. Oracle is going to check and see that at the responsibility level, no Excel version option has been defined. So it's going to leave that level, okay? And then it's going to go to the application level. For this level also, nothing has been defined. So it's going to leave that level and go up to the site level. And for the site level, the option for the Excel version is 2003, okay? So if that user doesn't have 2003, maybe they're not going to be able to view the Excel version. But if they have 2003, then they're going to be able to see the Excel documents that they're trying to look at. So let's assume also that at the responsibility level, 2003 has been assigned. What is going to happen? This user is going to log in. Oracle is going to check at the user level and see that for the Excel version, nothing has been defined. So it's going to leave this level and go to the responsibility level. At the responsibility level, nothing has been assigned. And it's going to leave this level. And then it's going to go to the application or module level and find that Excel version has been defined as 2003. And it's going to stop there because they have found the Excel version 2003 that they're going to use. All right. You can also assign the version at
Let me just clarify one thing for those who are watching. Now, when Victor says, for example, user 1 will be able to see the 2003 Excel version, what he means is this. Let's say, for example, you are trying to load values into the system in General Ledger module, and you're trying to use the journal wizard, okay, which is through Excel. So depending on if, for example, your computer right now you have 2010 version of Excel, and you want to load those values using the Excel function, which is the journal wizard, into the GL, then what will happen is, because you have 2010 version of Oracle and the system is set up as 2003, then 2003 at the GL application level, then you won't be able to use that functionality to load the values into the system, because your journal wizard, the Excel year is 2003 instead of 2010, which is the one that you're using for your computer. Okay.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification. All right. So if the Excel version set at the responsibility level is also 2003, So let's use that example that Bob just described. Let's assume this user, the desktop version that they have, the Excel version that's installed on their desktop is 2010. But the profile option that has been defined at the responsibility level is 2003. Then this user will not be able to use that function for the maybe journal wizard because the profile option that has been defined is 2003 and they have 2010, right? So maybe to make this example much clear, we can say the user also has, let me use the eraser. Okay. So if the user also has 2003, okay, this profile option can be defined at any level, and the user will be able to use that functionality. It can be set at the site level, it can be set at the application level, and at the responsibility level, okay? It can also be set at the user level to use the Excel 2003, all right? So, I'm trying to think of a way to explain. Anyway, that is the way that Oracle checks the level at which the profile options have been defined. It first checks at the user level whether anything has been defined. If nothing has been defined, it goes to the responsibility level. And then if nothing has been defined at a responsibility level, it will then go to the application level. And then the highest level is the site level, is nothing has been defined for each of these levels, right? So even for our example, let's use our example for the ledger, right? So let me erase all this. So we said the profile option that we use to assign a specific ledger to a responsibility is DL data access set, all right? But just like any other profile option, it can be assigned at any of these levels. Although for something like, something for like the ledger, it is recommended only to be assigned at certain levels, maybe like responsibility or at the site level. And let's just use that example for instance. So if we accept, if we assign our ledger, the Mascani ledger, at this responsibility, we assign that Mascani ledger here, Mascani, NA for Mascani. This user will come and they will log in, all right? If they log in as this responsibility one, then they can be able to see this Mascani ledger, okay? But if they log in and then they take responsibility 2, and responsibility 2 has not been assigned the GL data access set for Mascani, then they cannot be able to see the Mascani ledger. All right. So maybe there's another company that this user is managing. You can assign that company here. All right. Let's what can we call that company? Let's just call it Safaricom or something. SA. Sorry, that's a bit messy. So let's say this is Safaricom, for lack of a better. You can assign the ledger for Safaricom to this responsibility. Now, when we look at the GL data access set deeper, we are going to see that we can assign a ledger to multiple responsibility, maybe with different viewing options. But for now, we are assuming that we can only see one ledger to one responsibility using the data access set. All right. So although it is not recommended, so assume that we assign the Mascani ledger at the application level. All right. And we don't assign anything at the responsibility level. If user 1 logs in, so let me put Mascani up here. Let me put Mascani up here. So we assign it at the application level, all right? And we don't assign anything at the responsibility or at the user level, all right? If user 1 logs in and logs in as responsibility 1, nothing has been assigned at the user level, nothing has been assigned at the responsibility level. At the GL level, he'll be able to see the Mascani ledger. If user 1 also logs in and takes responsibility 2, at the GL, at the user level, nothing has been assigned. At the responsibility level, nothing has been assigned. He'll also be able to see it at the application level. So he'll still be able to access that that ledger. Okay. Same for user 2. So if user 2 also logs in and takes responsibility 2, which is assigned to the GL module, he'll also be able to see our Mascani ledger. Okay. So I hope that clarifies how profile options can be assigned at various levels. So let's go back to the system and look at an example. Okay, so let's close this. So let's do so again, the navigation was profile. This is under the system administrator responsibility profile system, like that. So let's take this might pull up many, but let's take one general ledger per user. 1 minute to bring it up. So I believe this first one is the responsibility that we are using, okay? So again, the profile option that we use to assign a ledger to a responsibility is called GL data access set. So you can just put in GL, then the wildcards, then data. All right? So this is the page for the system profile values that comes up. All right? So the option that we are looking for to assign a ledger is this one right here, the GL data access set. And you can see the various levels. You have the site level, you have the application level, you have the responsibility level. All right? So for this particular responsibility, they have been assigned this ledger. at the responsibility level. Okay, so technically you can have a ledger assigned at the site level, which means it's for everyone. If you look at the PowerPoint again, it's assigned here, so it means it's like for everyone, right? But this ledger that we are looking at specifically, this responsibility that we are looking at, the general ledger super user has been assigned a ledger at the responsibility level. Okay, so when this user, assuming it's this user who has logged in and they take this responsibility, they will be able to see that particular ledger. I think the name right there is BJ primary ledger. So when a particular user who has this responsibility logs in, they are able to see this ledger. And this ledger is assigned to this responsibility using the profile option GL data access set. Okay. So I think right now it's a good time to let's create our own responsibility so that we can actually see how this option works. All right. Go to let me collapse the menus again. So the navigation that we said for to create responsibility is under the system administrator. You go to security, responsibility, then define. Okay. We have a name that we are going to use for our responsibility. This is what we are going to use: Mascani Group GL US Super User. So use caps. I hope this will fit. Mascani Group GL dash US Super User. Don't think it will fit. Okay, that's good. That's the name of the responsibility we want to create. Application, general ledger.
You can use the underscore instead of the dash.
Or here.
Underscores, yeah.
So Mascani Group GL underscore US super user. The application is general ledger. The responsibility key, we can just make it the same as the responsibility name. Description is you can just put it the same as the responsibility name. It doesn't matter, that's fine. So we want to create a super user GL responsibility. We are going to create one as the one we were using for the example. All right. So the data group is a standard. We just put in standard and then click the tab button. Application is general ledger. Menu group is GL underscore super, then click tab, this first one. Okay. So that determines the menu options that we are going to be able to see. And then the request group, again, as I said, this is optional. It won't prevent you from creating your responsibility, but since we want to be able to run some of the reports, the standard reports, we have to select this request. We have to enter the request group. Okay. So I believe this should be standard concurrent. Oh boy. See, that's use the wildcards to check. So this is the one that we want, GL concurrent group program. GL concurrent program group. All right. So that's it. We have selected what we need on the responsibilities window to create a responsibility. Maybe just to down here you have some options. We're not going to look at those right now, but they are not mandatory. They would prevent us from creating a responsibility. So what do? We save.
We'll have to define the menu exclusions there because it's mandatory. You can pick from the one that you're copying from, the general one. That one.
Sorry?
I'm saying that setup there, the
Yeah.
menu exclusions, it's
Yeah.
mandatory for this responsibility creation. So we'll probably have to pick one from, from the one that you had shown us earlier, the generic one. I think
Okay, let's
something GL something. I don't remember which one it was. Just use the same one.
okay, let's save this first and let's look at the generic one and see what menu exclusion that they had put in there.
Correct, yes.
So general. All right, so this is the menu that we're supposed to. These have been created by other people. All right. I'm going to go with the previous one, the generic general ledger super this. So we're going to pick this one. Let's copy that and let's look for our responsibility again, the one we saved. I hope we saved it. Mascani. So this is our responsibility that we are trying to create. You can copy that menu exclusion over there, and it's a menu exclusion, not a function exclusion. Okay, cancel. All right, let's do menu, and then put that in there. Wow. Let us save. Bob, I don't think we have to select this at the moment. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we can leave that for now since it's optional, really.
Yeah. So
that table you're not able to find it anyway. Just leave it optional.
So let's just can close the form for now. Go back. Sorry for the back and forth. I just want to make sure that so much scanning. So yeah, so that's our responsibility. We have defined the menu group, we have defined the data group, and we have selected the request group. Okay. So let's save that and close it. But now remember, as we said, the main reason why we are doing this is because we want to access our ledger, the one that we created, the Mascani group ledger. So, and we said to assign the ledger to our responsibility, we have to use the profile options, okay? So let's go to profile options. What is the navigation? Under system administrator, go to profile, then system. Then we, under this responsibility field, we look for our responsibility, the one that we have just created, which is Mascani, connector Mascani, and select the tab and click on the tab button on your keyboard. That's our responsibility. What's the profile option that we are looking for? The one that we need to, so that we can assign our Mascani ledger to this. It's GL data access set. So you can put in GL wildcard data wildcard find. So for our responsibility, nothing has been assigned. So there's no ledger that we can access using this responsibility, okay? So in order to change that, you come here, you select this button right here, that GL data access set under responsibility, and we can look for our ledger, the one that we created in the previous lesson. It was Mascani, using the wildcard, find it. There it is, okay? So the data access set is automatically created once you create a ledger, and the data access set has the same name as the ledger that you created, okay? So we have assigned we have created our responsibility, and we have assigned our ledger to the responsibility using the GL data access set profile option. So right now we are going to take a small break, and when we come back, we are going to assign this responsibility to the user, because if it's not assigned to a user, we cannot log in, access the responsibility, and access the ledger. Remember this diagram that we have here. Remember, you have to create a user, then a user is able to log in and take a responsibility, and then from that responsibility they will be able to access our data access set. So let's take a small break, and we'll come back and create the user. Okay, so we have created our responsibility, Mascani Group GL US Super User. That's the name of our responsibility. We did this by defining the request, data group, and menu groups, and we also use the profile options to assign the ledger, Mascani Group ledger, to our responsibility, okay? However, we still cannot access our responsibility and consequently our ledger, because we have not created a user for our responsibility. So let's go to the system and create a user, all right? So this is where we assigned our ledger to the responsibility. We can save that and close that window. We collapse the menu options again. So to create a user, under system administrator, we go to the profile option, then we go to sorry, this is a profile option, this is profiles. We go to security, then we go to user, and then we go to define. All right, so for our instance, the naming convention that we are going to use your first and then first name underscore last name, okay? So for me, for the user that I am going to create, I'm going to use Robert's name, so I'm going to say Bob underscore Mwiti. All right. So for the password, you can use Maskani.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is fine.
You can use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I end 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have to enter the password twice before the system allows you to continue. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again, then enter. So that's good. Username, description, you can just copy that and put it in there. Okay. Here you have other fields where you can add additional information. So email, fax, and all those details that are put in there. All right. So down here is where you define the responsibilities that this user will have access to. Okay. So one responsibility that we are sure we want this user to have is the one that we created, Maskani. You can just enter Maskani and tab. I don't think there's another Maskani. So we have that responsibility assigned to this user. Okay. Another one that we want to have is system administrator, so that we can be able to do any system admin functions just from our own user instead of switching to another user and when we want to make changes. Okay. So it is system administrator. You can press tab. It's not system administration, it's system administrator. So OR, system administrator. That's OR. Okay. You can remove the while. The first one is system administrator. We can also select another general ledger super user just in case, maybe for comparison or something like that. We can select the one that we had over there. Let's take this one. Looks like a generic one. All right. So those are the three responsibilities that we have assigned to this user, which we are calling Bob Mwiti. So after we do that, we save our work. We can close this window. We can also close this Oracle Forms. We can come here. We can log out and log in as our new user, and then we will see the list of responsibilities that this new user that we created has. All right. So let's log out. Let's log in as our new user. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Login. Okay. Let's close that. So once you create a new user and you log in for the first time, Oracle will ask you to enter your current password and change it. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can just put in 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe it will take 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Submit. Cancel. So this is our new user. You can see it says here, logged in as Bob Mwiti. And these are the responsibilities that have been assigned to this user. You can see here, Maskani Group GL user super user. This is the one that we are going to use to access our own ledger. We have the generic general ledger super user. I'm calling it generic, but it's just another general ledger super user. We have the system administrator, and when you put system administrator, it comes along with this application diagnostics. Okay, so let's go back and remind ourselves where we are. We have created the user. Let's assume this is Bob Mwiti. He has two GL responsibilities. One is Maskani group, and this is the other generic one, general ledger super user. So once he logs in, he can either be this one, let's say this one is Maskani, or he can be the other general ledger super user responsibility. And both of them have different ledgers. So this one, I believe at the responsibility level, it was assigned BJ primary, right? BJ, and this one is Maskani. Okay, so when he takes Maskani this responsibility, he'll be able to access the Maskani group ledger. When he takes this responsibility, he'll be able to access BJ. I'm saying he, but it's me. so that's where we are in terms of what we've done on the system. Okay, so once you have done that, we can go ahead and we can enter and post journals in our new ledger that we have created. All right, so let's go back to the system. So let's log in as Maskani group responsibility. These are the menu options that we have for Maskani group. These are determined by the menu group that we picked, right? Now, I want to show you another diagram that we already saw in our slides. Just as a reminder, remember the periodic cycle for the general ledger. All right. Before you do anything, what you have to do, you have to manage periods. And the first thing you do is open the period, because you can only enter journals in a period that is open. So once you open the period, then you can start entering or importing journals from other modules. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do right now to test whether our GL that we created, our ledger that we created, our primary ledger, Maskani group ledger, whether it's working, we need to open the period, the first period. Okay. So let's go back. What do we need to do to open periods? We need to go to setup. I think I have the can search here. It's open, close. Okay. So this is the navigation: setup, then open, close. So select that. You can see already in this window, it knows because we only assigned one ledger to this responsibility, the Maskani Group US ledger. So we are opening periods for this ledger. Once you select this find button, it knows that you have not opened any periods. All right, so it will bring you directly the option of opening the first period. And remember, we specified when we are creating our ledger that the first ever open period in this ledger is January 2018. So select open. Are you sure you want to open? Yes. Your concurrent request ID has been sent, so a request has been sent. Okay. We can go to the SRS screen that I showed you already. So view request. I didn't copy the request ID, but let's select find. You can see we have a request here to open the period. You can click on refresh here. It's taking its time. opening. I don't know why it's taking so long. All right, so you see the request has been completed and the period has been opened. Let's go back to the open close page. So setup, come down to open close. So let's in these options you can because this window is the find periods window, you can select the years to, you can narrow down. Okay, here you can check the status of the periods you want to look for: closed, future entry, open, permanently closed. Or you can put in the specific period. You can specify the year. Maybe if you have more than 1 year already entered in your calendar, or the range of periods here. But we're going to select find for everything. So here you already see that our request went through and it was completed, and we have the first period open. Okay. Here, up here, you can see that we have February 2018 and a future entry. Why do we have that? Remember, when we were creating our ledger, we defined the number of future enterable periods, and we said 1. So once we opened January, also February was specified as future enterable. And remember, we said for future enterable periods, you can specify, you can enter and save journals, but you can't post journals. Okay, so we've done that. That's good. We've opened our first period, and now our ledger is ready for.
Now, just one thing I wanted to clarify about the future entry. Now, for example, on Victor's screen, you see that the future entry is just 1, because we opened January, and you can see only February that is future period, because the setup that we did for GL, we only had one future entry period. Now, if, for example, we had 3, the future entries here would be February, March, and April. Just want that clarification. You're seeing only 1 here because you only put 1. If we had 3, it will be February, March, and April as future.
Okay. All right. So now we have opened the first period. We can now enter journals. Go back to where we are. All right. So this slide demonstrates what a journal, the format of a journal looks like. So the first part is a batch. What is a batch? A batch, we can call it a logical grouping of journals. This is defined by the user, the person who's entering the journals. It's not a functional, any sort of functionality. It doesn't have any implications on the functionality of general ledger. So maybe if you're just entering a group of journals that are related, maybe invoices from one vendor, and you want to enter the journals together, you can put them in a batch. Okay, so a batch will contain 1 or more journals. So even when you enter a journal that's not in a grouping in a batch, Oracle usually just creates a batch that contains 1 journal, and it automatically gives it a name. All right, and then we know that a journal has 2 or more lines. Okay, so, and the journal has to balance. This is a credit and debit balance. So credits are supposed to be equal to debits in the line. Now, for the journal, there are some things that are usually specified. You can select the journal category. You can select the currency in which we are entering the journal. If it's in foreign currency, you can select the exchange rates. And in the journal header also, we have things like the source of the journal with if it's being imported from another module, you'll be able to see that the source of a journal is accounts receivable or accounts payable. But if you're entering it directly into the general ledger, then the source is manual. So I think the best way to see all this is by going to the system and entering our first journal. Okay. So let's go. You're still logged in as Mastani Group GL Super User. We collapse this. So the navigation is journals, then enter. This is the page that comes when you select that option to enter a new journal. You can select here. We are going to enter one journal. We're not going to enter a batch. So just select new journal. All right. So this is the page where you enter a journal. This is the journal name. This field you put in the journal name, the description. So we're going to call it, let's call it Maskani first journal. All right. You can put the description Maskani first journal. All right. For the ledger, which ledger is are we using? Maskani Group. It's the only one. All right. This option is usually a list option, but we only have one ledger accessible to us. Here you can select the category. We are going to look at the various categories of journals and what they tell us. Here we have the period for which we are posting this journal. We can also select February because it's future enterable, but we will not be able to post in February. All right. So because we want to post, we are going to do it in the open period, which is January. Right here, we have the currency in which you're entering the journal. When you select this list, we'll have a list of all the enabled currencies. All right. And once we choose a currency that's not the functional currency, we'll have to enter an exchange rate. But we are not there yet. So let's use US dollars. All right. Flex field, let's cancel. So let's enter our first journal line. The sequence number, you can use 1, 2, 3, or 10, 20, 30. So we have to select all this. Company, let's use Maskani. Developers, okay. Account, let's use cash. Division, these are our divisions. Let's use the first division. Industrial plants. Or something that I wanted to mention and I forgot to mention. Yesterday when we were creating our chart of accounts, we selected one of the segments as service line, but I changed it to department because I think department better reflects the values that are in that value set. So I just forgot to mention that before the beginning of the class, but all I had to do was change the name of the segment. There was no change in the chart of account structure because you can't do that. But Oracle will allow you to change the name of the segment after you've created it, after you've created the chart of accounts. So this is the one that was service line. All right. So let's select the operations department. Program. Remember this one, we said these two companies will be using default. And then future is just 0, 0 and 0, 0 because those are empty. Okay, so that's our first line. So let's say Maskani developers, they sold what? They sold a house for $1,000. That's a very cheap house. So the balancing segment 001 still has to be Maskani developers because we say this is the balancing segment. Okay. So what do? They they made some sales. All right, same division. So they sold an industrial plant that they have constructed. Department, field operations. Program is 00 default, and this is 002 and 00. Okay. So the revenue was also for $1,000. So you can save without posting, and you see you should have a message down here. Okay, so we have saved the journal, but we have not posted it. Okay, so when you want to post this journal, you select this button over here. So your current request ID, whatever. You can go to view, requests, find. You see posting is going on. So we see the request has been completed and the journal has been posted. So let's go back. Okay, we can close this. Need to move this. So let's go back. So when we click on let me do that again. I think I went too fast. So you can go to journals, enter. When you click find without specifying any option here, it will bring you all the journals that are saved, regardless of the period or the name. So this is the journal that we just posted. You can see the sources manual. The category we use was adjustment. It was posted in January. And the batch name, remember we just did one journal, but Oracle automatically creates a batch and gives it a name as Kani, the same as the journal name. It was entered in the USD currencies, and these are the amounts that we entered. Okay.
Now, I wanted to clarify something for anyone watching this video. Now, as you can see, when Victor tried to search for the journal, he didn't put any criteria for the search, okay? And it brought all the journals that he has, okay? Now, assuming, like, for example, when, when you're out there working as a consultant or maybe as an end user of the system, you might have thousands and thousands of journals, all right, that you'll have created. You can imagine like working for a big multinational firm. How many journals can you be entering? It's a lot. So what happens is if you do the same blind search like he did without any criteria, then it's going to pull out all those journals. And sometimes it might affect the way the system runs. You might stay there waiting for a long time for you to be able to find out all the journals. So it's always advisable, like you can use like a certain criteria, maybe a period or maybe by a batch name or posting status and stuff like that, for you to be able to, for the system to be able to pull the as little as possible as far as the number of the journals are concerned. Just want to make sure that I clarify that.
Okay. So just to demonstrate what Bob has just said, let's enter another journal really quick. In just a second journal. All right. So we're not going to change anything else here. Same category. So line, let's do 001. We just use this. Let's do another cache. Let's do retail this time. Let's do operations. Default. Okay, so 1000 again. So balancing segment 001. Revenue, let's say they sold another one. Revenue. $4,000. Okay. So what we're going to do is you're just going to save this. So we saved the record, but we have not posted it. All right. So let's close this. So here you can query journals by posting status, right? So let's do posted, right? And select find. We only have this one, okay? But close this, we do enter no criteria at all, and just do find. We have two journals, the second one and the first one, and this one shows that it is unposted. So that is why as we enter more journals, maybe we are going to specify criteria so that uh, we don't pull up all the journals that we have entered, and we stay waiting for the system to bring up the results. So thanks for that clarification, Bob. All right. Now we have seen how to enter journals manually into the GL. So let's look at this diagram. I know we are familiar with this diagram. So we know that accounting information is sent from other modules and from journals that we enter manually into the GL. However, it is not sent directly into the general ledger. What happens is accounting information is first sent to what is called the GL interface table. All right. So all information, whether it's from fixed assets module, accounts receivable, accounts payable, cash management, or manual entry, it is first sent into the GL interface table. Okay. Why does this happen? The information that is sent to the GL interface table before it is transferred to the general ledger tables themselves, to the general ledger, it has to be validated. It has to be checked whether it is correct. So what does that validation? That validation is done by what is called the journal import program. Okay. So before information is dumped into the GL, it is first dumped into the GL interface table. So what you do is you run an import program. That's for information that comes from the external modules, the sub-ledger modules. When you run the import program, the import program validates this information and makes sure that it is correct. So if there are lines which are not balanced, that information will not be imported. That accounting information will not be imported. And this happens on a per source basis. Okay? So if there's information in the GL interface table from accounts receivable, there's information from accounts payable, if one line in the information that comes from accounts receivable is not balanced, or one journal is not balanced, then all the information from accounts receivable will remain in the GL interface, and the correct information from AP and cash management will be imported. So the validation takes place on a per source basis. So it looks at information from AR, then information from AP and CE, like that, before it is imported into the general ledger. So if you want to import the information that is incorrect, that has been left in the GL interface table, what you have to do is do corrections. And how do you see the information that's in the GL interface? There's the import corrections screen that you can use in order to make those corrections, and then do the final import for the information that was left in the GL interface table. So why am I mentioning this concept of the GL interface table and the journal import program? We have already seen how to enter journals manually to GL, but we have other ways of entering journals, and this is called the journal wizard. What happens for the journal wizard is you use spreadsheets like Excel. Use Excel to enter journals, and then you upload these journals into the general ledger. So I am going to show you this process with a disclaimer. Okay. At the moment, our journal, I'm not able to use the journal wizard functionality because I don't have the correct Excel version. But I'm just going to show you what this looks like on the screen. So you go to journals, and then you go down here and select this launch journal wizard. Okay. So once you select this option, this window opens. It's a HTML. It's not an Oracle Forms window. So remember when I was telling you about profile options, the profile option that has been set and that's available, we only have, I think, Excel 2007 and Excel 2002. So we are not able to use any other versions to do the journal, wizard. So I have 2013. I can't use this functionality. But this is what happens. You come here, you select the kind of journals you want to upload. So you have the options of doing budget journals, encumbrances, foreign. Foreign is the ones that are entered in foreign currency, and functional are the ones that are entered in functional currency, and you have the option of doing multiple journals or single. All right. So content we use none, and then you come here and you select the create button, and you will get this window, and click OK. But when I do that myself, because of the profile option and the unmatching Excel version, I am not able to do it. So it will give me an error, or it will not bring the option to. This is the error that I get. But basically, that is the navigation that we use when we want to use the journal wizard. Let me go back to the slide. And once we are able to use the journal wizard, we are going to clarify also the option. We are going to clarify also the concept of the GL interface table and the journal import program, because these concepts are very clear once we are using the spreadsheet and the journal wizard functionality. All right, so I think that's a good place to end this lesson, and we are going to continue next time from the concept of balances, and we're going to do some inquiries and some reports.